Welcome to the most incredible marketing show ever. The show where each week a panel of respected marketing strategists, all trained and certified by the legendary Dan Kennedy, share their wisdom, experience, strategies, and insights on how to use Dan Kennedy's philosophy on business and marketing in any type of business, and that you can apply to your business immediately. Here's your host, Craig Valine.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Craig Valine, and this is the most incredible marketing show ever. Our topic today is effective time management for entrepreneurs. And this is kind of Dan's book on no BS time management for entrepreneurs. It's been a Bible in my life. How about anybody else? Rochelle, I'm going to start with you. I don't know why you're right at the bottom of me. So what's your take on, have you read the book and how do you apply it to your business?
Yes, I've read every Dan Kennedy book. Okay, let's be clear.
It was a rhetorical question more, but no.
Okay, all right. But you know what?
I need to read the book.
I had to actually structure my life differently. I happen to be a single mother by choice, and I wanted to be at every single one of my daughter's events. I take her and pick her up from school every day. I still get the privilege. She is a senior in high school, and so I still get to take her every day. Sometimes she talks, sometimes she doesn't, but I don't care. I still get to take her and pick her up, so that I had to create a business within the 6 hours a day that I had available. Because once she's home, then we had dance class and volleyball practice. And even from volleyball practice, I was at every single practice, not game, practice, right? Practice every day, watched the whole thing and was there present in her life. So now she can't wait to go to college and get away from mom, right? Because I was like, talk about a tiger mom. I'm like, no, 10 times tiger mom, right? But I needed to create my business so that it worked for my lifestyle. And that's how I used this book, Time Management, just for me.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that before we get started, because part of that is creating rules for your life, rules about how you run your business. And that's Dan's Renegade Millionaire program, right? Basically running your business on your own terms and having autonomy in your business. And I had to do that myself. I have my own mini-me, who I had the pleasure and honor of being at every event, volunteering every day at school, getting them up at a certain time, go volunteer at school, pick them up from school, go to practice. And in those times that I had available, I had to get as much done as possible. So that meant not answering the phone, sometimes not checking my email on a regular basis, doing things in a way that most people ignore. People just kind of let random things happen. We've talked about random acts of marketing, right? But, it offended people in doing that. And so, but I don't care, because it got me to get my stuff done, and I got time with the person that I love most in the world. So, Joe, as you sip that cup of water, time management for entrepreneurs, talk about how you use the principles and what rules in your business did you apply to your business as a result?
What makes you think that's water?
Yeah. Could be vodka. It's past noon. Yeah, so
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Steve. It's water. So, but seriously, I think first of all, it's a matter of, we all work all day long. I mean, we're busy doing a lot of things, and sometimes our what we plan for a day goes awry. So, my goal is at least 3 days a week. The first hour of the day for me is like about 8:30-ish or so. I'm doing that. I'm staying away from emails. I'm staying away from the phone. I'm spending at least an hour, working on things that I need to get accomplished. And they could be marketing. They could be, looking at my goals that I've already planned for. They could be just things that I know I got to get done for the rest of the week, and what do I need to do. But that's the way I manage it, so that I can have this set of time, and then I can move forward from there.
Awesome. Becky, how do you protect your time? How do you use these principles in your business?
Yeah, so I think everybody as different issues, right? So right now, I am part-time caregiver for my mom and dad. And, you know, life happens. And the best part about being an entrepreneur is you get to make the rules, your time, whatever you need to do. And it's that freedom that comes along with being the entrepreneur. You take the biggest risks, but you have the most freedom. And so I know, Rochelle's been through a time this past year, and she had to organize her time in a way that she still got things done, but whenever she felt good enough to be able to do that. So I'm under the same time management rules that Dan likes to share, which is you gotta get it done. And if you have client work, you definitely have to get that done, but you make the rules. And when I teach about time management, like I do in my No BS marketing meeting or mastermind, there's a lot of different types of time management people to teach time management to. There's the people who like to prioritize things. There's people who, are planners to do the marketing calendar. There's people that are visualizers and people who like to arrange things. So they all have different peak times that they are best at. I'm a morning person. You ask me to do something at 9 o'clock at night, and there's just no way, I'd fall right to sleep. So I just encourage those different types of people to do what works for them. The way I have found it best for me, planning around what I'm going through, is I concentrate. I think it's they call it the Pomodoro method. I try and concentrate for 20 minutes, no distractions. When my kids were little, I would literally have a hat on, and that meant you can't come and talk to me until I take the hat off. They're older now, so they know just to not bother me. But there's a lot of people that are trying to put their business in place when they have small kids running around. So if you do the Pomodoro method, 20 minutes, you set a timer, you really concentrate, then you take a 5-minute break, and then you come back to it. So I just think it's whatever works for you, but just know you already know probably what's most effective time for you, and then take that and break it down into small chunks is the easiest way that I have found over 35 years of being an entrepreneur to do that for me.
Awesome. Mark, how do you protect your time? What principles from Dan's teachings especially do you apply to your business?
What I love about Dan's book is it is very liberating when you start to really look into time management and thinking about it. Very validating too when he talks about time vampires. And I think, wow, these people are time vampires. That's exactly what they are. So it's really about protecting yourself against the time vampires or having policies and procedures in place that prevent them. But probably the most effective thing that I've taken away from it is the time blocking. Yeah. And what I like to do with my time is I act as if each thing I'm working on is like a subject in school, and I'm back in high school, and I plot out my day like I'm going to different classes. And then during those time periods, I'm working on that particular aspect of the business. So I time block that way in my day. And I also think in terms, there's a lot of, people go back and forth on what's the best thing to do. Should you get up in the morning and exercise first, or get up in the morning and do your, get to work first? And I find that you do what works best for you. And what personally works for me is I do my most creative writing, for example, and thinking. I'm the freshest when I'm in the morning. And even though I love going for a 5 or 6 mile run in the morning, I'll put that off, because I find that I've found in testing it out that I do better work writing first, and then I can do my fitness after that. So really test it and see what works for you.
Awesome. Steve, what rules do you apply to your business regarding time management?
Like Rochelle, I've read every word of every Dan Kennedy book multiple times, and I love the whole thing. But now, lately, because of this explosion of AI in the world, I'm really paying attention to this chapter 10 in this book, which Dan calls, in typical Dan fashion, fire yourself, replace yourself, make more money, and have more fun, which is all about delegating and getting out of the doing end of your business as much as you can. And I actually have a software now that can automate any boring, repetitive tasks that I or my clients are doing. It records all the screen clicks of the mouse and the whatever, and reading emails, sending out bids, can automate all kinds of stuff. So we really got to concentrate now on taking advantage of this technologies that's out there to automate this boring, repetitive stuff, not only for us, but especially for our employees. I don't know if everyone else hears this, but it's the number one thing I hear right now from my clients, successful business owners, is I'm having trouble finding and keeping good people. So one thing we can do when we have good people is have them enjoy their job more and they'll stay more. So if we implement AI and software and automation to automate boring, repetitive tasks for them, we elevate them to being able to do more important, more revenue producing tasks, as Becky would call them, during their day, instead of spending 3-4 hours on putting bids together and doing billing and paperwork. They now get to elevate and do better things. They love their job more. They're making more money for us, and the job is running better. So as Dan said way back before there was all kinds of software and AI and automation, he talked about delegation. Now you can really delegate it to machines to elevate us, to have more fun and make more money.
That's awesome. Dan, how do you protect your time?
Well, I do a number of things. And you know, for most business owners and entrepreneurs, they're getting pulled in so many different directions. They can't even think about time management. I once did a mastermind meeting and brought folks in from all over the country. And the first day I gave them all toy fireman's hats. And they looked at me and they said, "What's this about?" And I said, "I want you to think about something. How much time do you spend every week putting out fires?" And they all started nodding their heads. Okay. And nothing worse than to destroy your day and your time management than a fire pops up. And so, you know, it's so important that we keep in mind why we do what we do. And Rochelle talked about it. You talked about it. I have 4 kids. Okay. And I got my eyes open when I was very young. I got divorced and had 2 kids, and my wife moved away. And as I mentioned in the intro, I'm from the Cleveland area, and she moved to Florida. And that was pretty devastating for me not to be able to have my kids. Excuse me.
Yeah, I understand.
And I decided then that I wasn't going to lose that again. And fortunately, I found a great woman, got remarried, had 2 more kids. And my other 2 kids became a big part of my life. They came and visited a lot, spent the whole summer with me. But I did my business around what I wanted to do with them. I coached them. I went to games. I went to things. Okay. And if I had to do something at 8 o'clock at night because I wanted to go to my son's or daughter's game at 5 o'clock, then that's what I did. And I've never regretted that. My kids are grown now. Okay. And I'm sorry.
No, we love you for that, Dan. That's why we love you.
You're messing me up now, Dan. What are you doing?
I know. It's like we're all crying.
It came to fruition for me a little while back. I had a family relative who couldn't make a family event. And my teenage son said, "What the hell? Dad, you ran 2 and 3 businesses and you never missed a family function.
Yeah.
You don't think teenagers are paying attention?"
Yeah.
Especially boys. But he was. And he knew, he realized that meant so much to me. And so, I'm sorry. You got to remember why you're doing this. Okay? A few years back, I got Legionnaire's disease, and a doctor told me maybe you won't die. Okay? And it makes you think, right, Rochelle? Yep. It makes you go back and think about some things. And that did that for me. And I run my business that way. And so I'll share, I want to get away from this. I'm sorry, I didn't plan this. But
it's exactly why we have this topic.
Yep.
I have a resource that I use that works great for me. And everyone said, use what works for you. I agree 100%. This thing is not sexy. It's not flashy. It's not techie. It's kind of like me. Okay. Uh,
Oh, but you're so sexy.
I agree.
His wife might be
Especially a
watching, so be
crying
careful.
man that has feelings, that loves his kid. Are you kidding me? But I also love your wife too. So it's
Right. We love Lois.
Thank you. Anyway, and I've shared this with all my clients, and a lot of them just throw it away, and that's okay. What works for you. I use a written to-do list. Okay. And I start filling it out at the beginning of the week, and I work from there. And I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons I use it, it stays on my desk all the time. Remember, I talked about putting out fires? Well, what happens when you're in the middle of getting a bunch of stuff done and Mark, you're writing and things are going, and then boom, something happens and you get drawn away and you have to go take care of it. Well, usually it takes a while to get back on course. Right now, what was I doing? Or sometimes you forget about something that you wanted to get done by 3 o'clock. Here's my to-do list. See how pretty that is? Okay. And I add to it. It never stays the same. And it allows me, when I put that fire out or when I get distracted and I come back, I can immediately look at my list and go, oh, yeah, I have to do that. Oh, yeah, this by 4 o'clock. I highlight some things. You saw some of that. So that allows me, and it stays on my desk all the time. I started using it at one point. I was running 4 businesses, 3 auto repair shops, and a coaching business. And I would have never gotten through it without that keeping me. It allows me to refocus.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I appreciate you bearing with me.
Oh, for crying out loud, that's what this thing is about. So thank you. We're going to take a moment and just.
We're all crying out loud.
right.
Hold on. We're going to take a moment and get a message from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
This episode of The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever is sponsored by booksgrowbusiness.com, the place where busy professionals and business owners get their books published to educate consumers, lead their fields, and leave a legacy. For a complimentary signature book discovery session, visit booksgrowbusiness.com. That's booksgrowbusiness.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay.
I'm glad I don't have to follow that directly. Get a sponsor.
Well, look, I had some major challenges in my life, and I was away from my son for a period of time, but it was because of the years before that I had dedicated my time and used the principles in Dan's programs, his Renegade Time Management for Entrepreneurs, the book, and everything. It was because I had that foundation set up in advance that my relationship with him didn't get affected. It was because I built a bond. It's like you just said, Dan, because your son remembered all the time that you had dedicated and were there for them, right? That it mattered. And it was based on a philosophy and a principle that we've adopted into our lives that has made a difference. And I owe everything to that book because it really changed my life. It really gave me permission to be a parent, a visible, in-present parent to my son. And I love that.
That is the truth. I will say one last thing on that topic is as far as a tip, I also do a weekly to-do list, right? And I just brain dump everything on a sheet. And then I used to have like these daily rigid calendars that held me hostage, actually. And sometimes I can't write when it's time to write, right? And I had to give myself permission. That was first. But secondly, now after Dan talked about, he gave reference to, so all of you that don't know, if you see old pictures of me, my hair was long and full. And I just battled breast cancer, kicked its ass, like everything else that I do in my life kicks its ass, right?
Yeah.
And coming back from that, as I was up all night putting to-do lists together, right? Some days I don't have the energy anymore. And so I used to feel bad about that. Man, I'm not going to cry. Dan, you started this shit with the crying, right? So because I don't have the energy, and I don't want to be held hostage by the to-do, in my planner, I write down everything that I accomplished, that I got done. So I take it from my big list of things that need to get done for the week. And then every day I put on there what I did so that I could feel accomplished. because when I couldn't walk, when I needed help to the restroom, I didn't feel accomplished anymore. And so this is a way that I kind of flipped this whole to-do list, is just making sure that I'm consistently just feeling accomplished and feeling better about all the things that need to get done in a day, and there for my family and friends.
You know, I just attended Rochelle's workshop a couple of weeks ago on Small Business Saturday, right? And she gave us this advice, and I've been doing that, and it's amazing how many things I record of what I got done, and it's a sense of accomplishment, a measurable sense of accomplishment when that happens. An exercise that I'm going to reveal it, Rochelle, that she had us do at the workshop was write down 20 of your accomplishments, of your life accomplishments, then write 100. You know, and it's amazing. It's like, hey, I actually have done some things in my life. It's pretty amazing. We don't think about that. We don't give ourselves credit for things, for the little successes that we have in our lives, including the big successes. So what I want to,
and I think I wanted to add on with what Dan and Rochelle both do. I'm a list builder too, but there's no better feeling than when you can cross something off of it. Like that's what I live for. It's like, oh my God, I finally got that done and cross away. So just piling on.
So what I want to wrap up with in this episode is, but Steve, my business is different. I can't do that in my business. Tell us what you would say to that person.
For time management?
For the principles based on Dan Kennedy's philosophy.
Well, I mean, it kind of says it itself. If you don't have the time to do time management, then you need to do time management. Like if you're running around putting out fires, chicken with your head cut off, doing too many boring, repetitive tasks, working, every minute of every day and thinking busyness equals productivity, which it does not, then you really need to get some time management, get some help, read this book, get with one of us, get with somebody that knows how to do it, because we haven't even scratched the surface of 1/100th of what's in this book and what we've learned and what we've experienced from Dan. There's so much more to it, but it's all about taking control. You can't, as Dan says, you can't control time, but taking control of our life and how other people interact with us when they can't. Like Becky says, you got to put a hat on. You got to close a door. You got to let people know these are my office hours. These are when you can interrupt. These are when you can ask questions. I only answer my emails twice a day. You have an autoresponder with your emails and say, like, I don't respond immediately. I will only respond at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That's when all kinds of things you can do. But the bottom line is, unless you want to you started a business to be a slave to the business, you've got to take control of it. And that comes down to time management.
Yeah. The average time management program does not operate under the rules that Dan Kennedy shares in his book or in his Renegade time management program. So Mark, you mentioned time vampires. What else would you say to somebody who says, but my business is different, I can't apply these principles to my business? Well,
I'd say that you may think that your business is different, but we all have the same clock. So at the end of the day, Dan wrote about it in his book. It's about determining those priorities of what we're doing. Because to Steve's point, a lot of people run around trying to check things off their list that are merely activities, and people are mistaking activities for accomplishment.
Right.
And I hear that a lot from clients. They got to do this and this and this. And I'm thinking, those are not needle moving activities. Those are like would be nice kind of activities. So it's all about really setting those priorities. And if your business is different, think in context of what's important in your business and what's going to move the needle.
Yeah. And at the sake of repeating ourselves, because we may say similar things, I just want the emphasis to come from a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds. But Becky, what would you say to the member or person listening to this who says, but my business is different, I can't use these principles in my business?
Yeah, it's what I do say to them. Time is an asset. Everybody has 24 hours in a day, and you have to use your asset, which is time, to accomplish whatever that is you want to accomplish. So I think, too, a message, and I'm sure Rochelle would agree with me, we've gotten a thick skin being in this industry with mostly males for so long that if you're new out there and if you're a woman, that it's okay to say no. You can absolutely say no and be proud of saying no, because if it doesn't fit whatever you're doing right that second, say no to it and move on to something that will help you either get more clients or get more business or get more leads or whatever that is that you want. But Dan's biggest lesson in that time management book to me was time is an asset. We all have 24 hours. And if you want to have the time vampires, I had forgotten that, Mark, and it was so true. So I've been doing this for how many years? 35. I just let it happen about 2 months ago. Woman that was in my group, hadn't heard from. I talked to her about 2 years ago. She called, hey, let's catch up. Okay. I ended up talking to her for like an hour and just kind of giving her some ideas. And after I was done, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, time vampire right there. Like, you either were to the point where you can pay me for that big idea, or, I'll talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes, but then I have things to do. So it's just such a good reminder, and just know it ain't perfect. So it's always a learning process, but time is an asset and you have to treat it like that.
Well, Dan talks about at the beginning of the call, state how many minutes you have for the call.
Yeah.
And I get away from doing that
Amen.
a lot. When you first get on the call, say, I got 6 minutes, go.
Yeah.
And that reminds ourselves, I got 6 minutes. Got to get back to what I got to do.
Be concise. All right, Joe, what would you say to a member or a person to listen to this? But my business is different. I can't apply these principles to my business.
What we've all heard before, stop working in the business, start working on the business. And that's where and working on yourself, your own time, even personal time. But that's why you should do it. And you'll actually find that when you're working in the business, after you've allotted time for yourself to plan out things, do so, so on and so forth, that you might find it easier to work in your business. So that's kind of the way I look at it and what I tell my people.
Dan, what would you say, other than everything you just already said, which was phenomenal? What would you say to the person who says, but my business is different, I can't use these principles?
Hands up again. Hang on. All right.
I'm better now. Just
I'm ready.
You bring my family into the conversation, and it gets there. I want to go back to something that Steve said, and for a lot of entrepreneurs, and we've been in the Dan Kennedy world. We've listened to Dan a lot. We've seen it. We've read his book. Most people have not. And my advice would be get help. Get help. And that's what Steve said. Okay. And it may not be enough for the book. Okay. But when they say to me, my business is different, I figured it out a little while back. I've worked with over 146 different business categories. Okay. So don't tell me your business is different. All right. I worked with a Jewish man a while back, a mattress manufacturer who is a strict Jew, and told me, and I don't remember what time of the year it's called, if anybody knows, where they can't do any work from sundown for like 7 days to sun up. He told me they put lights on it. They can't even flip light switches. That's how strict he is about it. We planned ahead and got all this stuff done. Now, if somebody like that can take a whole week out of their business and not work on it at all, you can figure it out, okay? But for most people, you need to get help. For me, I brought VAs into the picture for me, okay? There was a lot of work that I couldn't get done. I wasn't very good at. I didn't want to do. I have VAs do that for me. Now I can spend time doing the things that I'm good at. And so the biggest suggestion I would have, first of all, your business isn't different. You're not different.
Right.
So, don't hesitate to get some help doing this. When I first got my first VA, I was kind of ignorant about it. And when I was talking to the young lady I was thinking about hiring, she said, well, how many hours do you think you want somebody for? And I said, probably about 10. And I meant 10 hours a week. She goes, oh, okay, so 10 hours a month. That's great. We'll do this. And I didn't know. Well, so I didn't want to sound like I was as stupid as I was. I said, yeah, 10 hours a month, right? Here is the thing. I brought her on board, and oh my goodness, the work she got done in those 10 hours was unbelievable. The 10 hours was plenty. But then as I learned what she could do and how liberating it was, I found more for her to do and more for her to do. Okay. And that 10 hours turned into 20 and freed me up. Okay. And I'll come back to something I said before. It has to be a decision. Okay. You really have to decide that this is what you're going to do. And if it comes down to getting help, whatever that may look like, get help. Okay. And that's called investing in your business, whether it's from a coach, a VA, or whatever it may be, get help.
Awesome. Ben?
Well, I think it goes back to the previous discussion on priorities, and time management is really about priority management. When you're looking at your list of tasks, it's one, does this thing even need to be done? Are you just doing it because that's what everyone else in the industry is doing? Is it really moving the needle? And if not, just don't do it. And then the next question is, do I need to be doing it? Is there somebody, a VA, like Dan mentioned, or someone else I can outsource it to that can do this, that's going to do it more efficiently than I could do it, be a better use of my time, so I can focus on the high priority tasks. And then once that's in place, then it's about how do you kind of personally manage your energy. What time of day is best for your creativity, like Mark mentioned, and blocking out those things. But it really needs to be filtered down based on what are the things that are going to move the needle in your business.
Rochelle, let's wrap it up with you. What do you have to say if someone says, but my business is different, this won't apply to me?
Normally when they say that, especially regarding time management, they're talking about, I have to respond to emails as soon as they send them or I'll lose the business. I have to do these things and I'm tied to my phone. I'm tied to my computer. I'm tied to the technology. That's what I normally hear. And no, you don't. And if you lose the business because you didn't respond to the email, then your marketing isn't correct. And you haven't set who you are so that the business is coming to you, right? Establish that authority. We talk about moving the needle, and sometimes I think we need to be very, very specific about what does that mean. So I take everything every day that is going to produce revenue, like immediately, like send the email or invoice, rerun a credit card, any of those things. And I circle those in green. So I always have like a green pen. And so that's what I do first thing every morning. So now the needle in my bank account has increased, right? And then after that, everything else, we just work it out from there. And I stole that from my favorite movie, Working Girl, right? She's like, hey, I don't know how it works, but at the end, we'll just work it out from there. But, the getting help thing, I don't think people want to get help. They like being in that because it makes them feel busy, like they're doing something, right? That activity makes them productive. But if you really want to make money, if you want to move the needle, if you want to change your life, change your business, then hell yeah, get help. And I think there's 8 people on here who would help, who would love to help you too.
Yeah, this philosophy is not for everybody. We just want to say that. And, I remember watching the recordings from the first IBA training in 2006. And Dan specifically said, you're never going to find someone like us, like our way of thinking. You're not going to find a bunch of them in a room. You're going to find 1 or 2 in a needle in a haystack, right? Yep. So this may not be for you. This time management process may not be for you. But if you think differently, if you want, I do a Costanza, do the complete opposite of what everybody else is doing, you'll probably be very successful, So I protect my time like a wallet. But, the one thing I have, like Rochelle went through breast cancer last year. My wife is currently going through pancreatic cancer. So I've got to guard my time the same way. And I set the rules by which I run my business. And you all can do that. Not you all. I know you all do. But anybody watching this or listening to this, you all can protect your business, protect your time any way you want. So that's called autonomy. And that'll be on a different episode coming up. Listen, everybody, we're running out of time. So we can wrap up here. Any final words? Anything Steve didn't say yet?
A final word that when Dan wrote this book, suppose he's working on a new edition or whatever, the world of text messages and social media has flipped this whole thing wide open. It's not nearly as easy as it used to be, where Dan is famous for fax me something and then maybe I'll fax you back in 3 weeks. Now it's like, man, if I don't respond to that text, blah, blah, blah. It's tough, but you got to do it. You got to not respond to that text when it's not time to respond to that text. Second of all, I want to condition that person. I'm not responding to you just because you text messaged me. I'm in charge of my life, as everyone here has said, and I'm certainly in charge of my business, and it's up to each individual person to make that happen.
Right.
And if I could say something, Craig, you mentioned something. You said this isn't for everybody and not everyone can do it, or it is a fit. And I agree with that. But I will leave this. If nothing else, we planted a seed for folks today with what we were talking about. And I guarantee people say, oh, I can't do that. I couldn't. I have to answer my texts, or I have to answer my emails. You know what? In a week, in a month, in 2 months, they're going to start saying at times, those guys were right. Those guys were right. Look at me. Look at where I am in my life. And if they have one of those life-altering occasions, it's really going to come home to them. So if you didn't get something out of this segment, I feel sorry for you, but I know I did.
Amen. A seminar in every episode. Teach people how to do business with you and do business with those people who respect your time. Listen, we have to wrap up. So I want to thank everybody, all my expert panelists here today. And I want to thank you if you're watching or listening to the most incredible marketing show ever. New episodes are available every week on Thursdays.
Thank you for joining us this week on the most incredible marketing show ever. New episodes are available every week on Thursdays. To receive a free gift pack from our expert panelists and get access to show notes from previous episodes, be sure to visit our website, www.mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell up in the right-hand corner to be notified of future episodes so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you clicking the like button and leaving a comment on what big aha you got during the show. That's it for today's episode. See you next week.